Welcome back to a Wednesday edition of Running Point, presented by Greenwood Chevrolet on Mahoning Avenue in Austin Town. Ron Potesta with you, alongside Anthony Hardwig, and it's Wednesday. It's 1 o'clock or a little after. It is time to bring on our guy from Mill Creek. He is the man that makes Mill Creek go. He is our PGA guru, the one and only Brian Tolnar, joining us on the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning Hotline. What's going on, amigo?
I'll tell you what, dodging some raindrops and getting a lot of golf in here, which is a good thing. It's been a good month of June, albeit 9 days in, but we've sort of missed some of the rain, which is awesome, and been swamped with golf lessons, which is a real good thing. It means a lot of people are coming into the game and trying to get better. So, we're here to help and having a lot of fun.
Speaking of lessons, we had a question last week that called in after your segment. And it was Champ, and I know Champ is one of our regulars, and he wants to know, as a left-hander himself, if the trends of left-handed golfing have changed since back in the day. You didn't used to teach a left-handed hitter to hit left-handed because it was so much harder to get left-handed clubs and it was more expensive. So the trainers would just teach left-handers to hit right-handed. But now I'm assuming that it's a lot more accessible to get your hands on left-handed equipment. So are we starting to see more and more left-hander golfers being trained to hit left-handed, or is it still this, trying to get them to hit right-handed if they can?
I think we are. I think we're seeing a little bit of growth in the left-handed market. Just accessibility is the biggest key with finding left-handed equipment. Going back to when I started and entered into the game, and it was very limited, or a special order that took you a while to come in because it was just not a popular set makeup back in the day. For however many left-hander people there is in the world, you would think that if they bat left-handed, they're going to golf left-handed, and so on down the line. But if you have trouble finding golf equipment, odds are if you want to be able to play golf, you're going to gravitate towards something that's right-handed. I want to say, using a fact of about 5%. 25, 30 years ago, were in the game left-handed, and if you watch the PGA Tour, there was like one or two, and if you watch the PGA Tour in the last, couple weeks, there seems to be a sudden influx of left-handed golfers. Obviously, Phil winning the PGA was at the pinnacle of that, but I mean, there's a ton of guys on the PGA Tour that now play left-handed, and it's probably around 20 to 25%. So it's grown quite a bit. There's a left-handed golfers association that travels all over the United States and plays. We hosted them when I was up in New York, and then, just a funny scenario. We were talking about this over the weekend. Playing golf with, my parents and my son. We went out and played Sunday afternoon, and my uncle plays right-handed, but he putts left-handed. So Preston, our son, who's 7, is like, Dad, how come he's putting left-handed? Well, he's naturally left-handed, same scenario, didn't have the accessibility to left-handed equipment, learned to play right-handed. He was a very good athlete in college and in high school and so on down the line. You just sort of adapt and kind of go that route. But there were 6 groups that played our course Sunday mornings when I was up in New York. Everybody that was in those 6 groups were left-handed. And I don't think that any place I've ever been where you have that many groups of left-handed folks. But there's a family that played in there that made up about 7 players in the group. Sons, grandfathers, grandkids, so on down the line, uncles, all left-handed. So they obviously had some access to left-handed equipment, and it passed down through generations. So you could kind of see that. But a lot of players will play right-handed, even though they're left-handed. Just because, equipment and availability. Today, you can pretty much get anything you want. It's the same amount of cost. It's not a special order. It's, very easily accessible. My wife plays left-handed. Like I said, my uncle plays right-handed, but putts left-handed. It's just a matter of preference, but equipment was prevalent, more so for the right-handed golfer way back in the day than it was. And Champ's actually out here playing this afternoon, so it was good to see him.
It's interesting, Brian. I am left-handed. My father's left-handed. My older brother is left-handed. And when we're on the golf course, we're all swinging right-handed. I was telling Anthony, I never saw a left-handed golf club until I was in my 20s. I didn't even know those things existed. But years ago, somebody looked at me and said, "You throw left-handed. Why aren't you hitting left-handed?" I don't know. Well, here, try this, and they gave me a baseball bat and said, "Try to swing left-handed." I'm like, okay, it's natural. It felt natural. So when I had one of those old single blade putters. One of those old school single blade putters that you can use left-handed or right-handed. I would putt left-handed, and it felt so much better and more natural than if I were to do it right-handed. Not that it makes a big difference because I suck on either direction, but it felt a lot more natural to putt left-handed. And I tried playing a round of golf left-handed. Now, obviously, it takes a lot of practice to get that down, but it felt natural. But I never was able to get the clubs.
Yeah, and that's a perfect point. And I can remember growing up not seeing a left-handed club, not even a wedge, a putter, or anything of that sort in the golf shops the courses that I grew up around. And now, if you come in here, for every 10 clubs, we have 2 left-handed clubs in there, whether it be wedges or woods or fairway woods or hybrids. It's something that we're definitely thinking about come ordering time, because you do have, folks that come out and get fitted for left-handed clubs. So, it's important for us to be able to stock that and cover that demographic of golfers. So, ladies equipment, senior equipment, and left-handed equipment is vitally important. And I think if you tag all those, you tag all the bases. And, you go to a left-hander and you talk about Phil Mickelson. Phil Mickelson is a right-handed person. He just plays left-handed because what he was trying to do was mimic his dad swinging the club backwards by looking at him. So they would both take the club back and follow through, standing face-to-face, and that's how he learned the game, which is kind of odd that you see a right-handed playing left-handed. So, to each his own, and equipment was probably the biggest driver of, getting more folks to play left-handed today, because it's just, more so relevant, more so available compared to yesteryear.
Let's talk about some things going on at Mill Creek. I saw you on your Facebook that you guys are looking for volunteers for the Junior All-Star event on June 21st through the 25th. Talk about what different things that people can volunteer for, and if they're interested, how to go about doing that.
Well, there's a myriad of activity and shifts that come along with the volunteer shifts for the American Junior Golf Association event that we're hosting. It goes from, you can do live scoring. Every 3 holes, the players check in, and they have a live scoring component where they'll check in with a volunteer, kind of like what you see on the PGA Tour. There's a person there to take their scores, then it hits the leaderboard. In their case, it's an online app and an online leaderboard, but they punch them in on these devices. It goes right to the leaderboard electronically, so you can see where everybody's at in the field. They have registration volunteers. They have what they call a water rover, basically running lunches and water to the volunteers as well as players onto the golf course. They also have scoring tents, so when the players come in, they still have to do the pencil and paper from a scorecard perspective and go over the hole by hole, so we'll have some volunteers doing that. And then just player registration and driving range check-in. They have all kinds of activities that if you're interested in volunteering, they can call the pro shop here at 330-740-7112. We'll get you set up with a shift. We have about 150 shifts, volunteer needs during the week, and we usually have all of those covered, and I usually have about 10 or 15 more on a waiting list just in case of emergencies or they need some extra help here or there. So the people of Mahoning Valley have been very supportive of the event. Part of volunteering, you'll get a AJGA pin, you'll get a hat, you'll get a lunch while you're on duty, and then if you're a student, either high school or in college, you'll have some community service time that they'll sign off on, and it's good for any of your honor society or any of your organizations in high school or college. So it's a great way to burn up some of that community service time, from a volunteer standpoint, by being outside and watching some of the world's greatest junior golfers between the ages of 12 to 15. So if you have an opportunity or if you're interested and would like to help out, you don't have to have any golf experience whatsoever. The staff of the AJGA is wonderful at getting everybody, well-versed on what their volunteer shifts are and getting you set up. Like I said, we do have shifts all throughout the course of that week and definitely need some help. So, please do, if you're interested, call us because it's an enjoyable week and you get to spend some time outside and you're inside the ropes with the kids.
Okay, so who's going to be holding up the big quiet sign?
Well, on the last day, they're going to have a few of those, and they also have some. If you remember going back to the LPGA days, which I did as a kid at Squaw Creek and Avalon Lakes, carrying the sign with the leaders and their how many under they are, and with all the names. They have that for the final round. I believe they do the last 6 groups of the boys and the last 6 groups of the girls division. So we usually have a lot of high school kids that'll come out and do that, but that's all part of the process. We'll have bleachers on 9 and 18 and hole number 1 and down on the driving range, which I think is neat. Being able to go to the range and sit there and watch the kids hit balls. They're just phenomenal golf ball strikers. They hit the ball extremely well. They're very well mannered, well beyond their years of 12 to 15 compared to how it was when I was a kid. Very mature, and it's a fun week, and it's a good week to have. This national tour, here in northeastern Ohio, albeit in Youngstown, at the Metro Parks here. The families really enjoy it. It'll be about a $1.6 million financial impact. That's hotels, that's dining, that's shopping, that's taking part in park activities. We have some concerts. We have some other events scheduled for the families when they're here. Last year, we finally got the state of Kansas in, so now we can say we have all 50 states covered. We have 27 different countries covered. 98.6% of the people that you're going to see play here this week will play at Division 1, 2, or 3 in college. And I always ask myself, well, where's the other 1.4%? The other 1.4% is the people that go right from the junior tour right into the LPGA or PGA tour. So, their placement's unbelievable. We had a kid win the first 2 years here. Max Mullivan was his name. The only back-to-back winner in AJGA history. And if you think of Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, Lexi Thompson, who played well at the Ladies U.S. Open this past weekend, Ricky Fowler, Justin Thomas, and Jordan Spieth, and all of these guys, none of them were able to win the same tournament back-to-back. Max did that. He's got a full ride at Ohio State. He's the one man at Ohio State on the golf team. He's number 2 in the NCAA for an individual. And, going with the trend of, bringing people to your community, we had 13 out of the 14 teams of the Big Ten here represented by their golf team coaches. We had UCLA, Texas, Oklahoma State, Duke, Florida, North Carolina, Youngstown State, obviously, because it's in the backyard. But, probably 70, 80 coaches that'll be here during the course of the week recruiting kids, which I find hard to believe is, between 12 and 15, which is usually when they really, try to have them wrapped up or have an eye on who they want to recruit or who they want to offer scholarships to. I just find it's hard to be able to recruit someone that's, 12, 13, 14 years old. They haven't even hit high school yet, and all the stuff that goes, with maturing through high school and puberty and the whole 9 yards. So it's sort of a crapshoot, but they're all on site. Part of this event, we raise money for local charities. Year to date, I think we're a little bit over $70,000. That goes for the Mill Creek Metro Park Foundation, which is reinvested back into the facilities here at the Metro Parks, as well as the ACE grant, which is really unique because it gives kids the opportunity that can't afford to play and travel to these events, the opportunity to be able to do that, all expenses paid. If they have the playing ability, they'll find a way to get you out there. So it's just a great week for golf. There's a junior amateur part of the equation. Is kind of like a pro-am where you'll get to play with one of the players on Monday in the afternoon, and they do a charity presentation, and they play basically Tuesday all the way through Friday. There's 2 events this year, 2 78-player fields, which was their way to get around COVID, although the COVID restrictions have been lifted from that aspect. But we will have a little over 250 families here between the 100-player qualifier and the 2 events at 78 players apiece. So bringing a lot of people to the area to really showcase the Metro Parks in Youngstown in the Mahoning Valley is a king component of why we looked out and why we tried to bring this organization in. And they only do 114 of these worldwide, and we have one here in northeastern Ohio. So, very special event and very special event to the community. It's our way of being able to pay back the community that supports us here, albeit through the tax in Mahoning County, by being able to fill up the hotels and fill up the shopping centers and fill up the local businesses here too. So it's our way of saying thank you for all that you do for making us function. and giving you some money in return with bringing in some of these events with national acclamation.
And Father's Day is coming up really soon. You guys are having the Father's Day golf package raffle. The drawing is on Monday, I believe. Talk about what's in that package. I know it's a high value package that you could win, and how people can go about entering that, obviously, before the draw.
Yes, it's something new that the Metro Parks Foundation is doing. We have a foundation that started a little while back, and a really good development director named Chris Linton. So he's, thinking of some ideas to promote the park and the golf course and some of the things that we have here in the Metro Parks and to help fundraise for the foundation. So he came up with the idea of raffling off a foursome. You'll get a foursome of golf with cart, range balls, the whole 9 yards. You'll get lunch at hole 55. And there's some Titleist Pro Vs in there as well. There's some shirts in there, some Donna Ross design shirts from the golf shop. Just basically putting a nice golf package, a good Father's Day golf package that you have the opportunity of winning. He's got some information on the foundation's website on Facebook, as well as, I believe it's ilovemillcreekmetroparks.org is our foundation website. If you go there, he's got everything pretty much listed and all the things that he does from a foundation and a fundraising standpoint. Does a really nice job with that. Couldn't be more blessed with what he's been able to do. I think when he took over, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, the foundation had about $700,000 in it, and it had stayed that way for a little while. And he's come in, and I think he's well over $3 or $4 million in fundraising and grant money and so on down the line. So he's really turned the foundation into something long term for us. Part of the golf course here, we have the golf endowment that we started 2 years ago with Mahoning Valley Hospital Foundation and Mike Senchek. The goal was always to be, if for some reason the levy didn't pass, we need something to fall back on. So his vision and his sight, along with our executive director Aaron Young, has always been, how do we look down the future if something hits the fan or we run into trouble? So you have to have a way to be able to function and still maintain at a high level. And part of it is through the foundation and fundraising and raising money and searching and finding grant money for the Metro Park. So they do a wonderful job, and part of it's this package, which is pretty cool because it showcases the golf department and showcases what we do here on a day-to-day basis in a sport that's very fastly flourishing and growing, post pandemic and through the pandemic. So we're excited with where we're headed, and they are too.
Brian Tolnar, the guru from Mill Creek, our golfing guru, joining us on the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning Hotline. All right, it's time to talk about this week's stop on the PGA Tour. It's down in South Carolina, the Palmetto Championship at Congaree Golf Club in the beautiful community of Ridgeland, South Carolina, where it's going to be humid because it's always humid in South Carolina. Talk a little bit about this golf course, and is it going to be one of those weeks where the winning score is in the high teens, early 20s?
Well, I think you're right on there. Obviously this is an interesting event because it's a one-year event, very similar to what we saw. Remember at the Wyndham, when the PGA Tour started up, they had the John Deere that wasn't going to happen in Wisconsin. So Jack down at Muirfield says you can run your event down here. Wyndham jumped in to sponsor, so they did that 1 week, and then they went to the Memorial. This is basically in the same boat. It's going to take over and replace the RBC Canadian Open, which has basically been canceled, with the logistical challenges related with, crossing the border and the COVID-19 pandemic up in Canada. It really put a damper on this event, and they were reluctant to open the country up to have travelers come in and out, which I fully understand. So basically, Congaree jumped in and said, hey, we like to take that spot, albeit for a year. We want to get our feet wet. Congaree's a place that in 2019, made a hard pitch at the 2025 President's Cup, and unfortunately came up a little bit short. Part of that is the fact that this is our third event in South Carolina, which we have one more with the McGladdery that comes up in September. So, having a fourth event in South Carolina was probably not on the PGA Tour's radar. So, them being able to jump in here and showcase their golf course, I think, which is going to help them, going in the future to get Ryder Cups, to get President Cups, and higher level tournaments. I think is huge for Congaree. But Congaree is a private facility, relatively new, built in 2018. It's number 39 in the Golf Digest top 100 golf courses. Albeit this is a one-year run, it's a great venue. It's a mix between Kiowa Island, which we saw at the PGA Championship a couple weeks ago. A lot of Pinehurst type brush, a lot of waste area, a lot of brush. So it's a combo between Pinehurst and Kiowa Island. You got some ocean feel to it. You've got some water. You've got some low trees and scrub brush. It's your true low country feel. A lot of water, a lot of sand. Obviously, Tom Fazio is their designer. He's the king of sand, and I call waste areas and scrub brush and heavy rough. He gives you plenty of fairway to work with, but once you get off of that, there's not much. So you got to be very careful when it comes to hitting it off the tee. It's a lengthy property, so just like Kiowa, accuracy is going to be vital this week. You certainly have to have a good short game because the greens have a lot of subtle breaks to them as well. So you have to have a lot of creativity when you're chipping and pitching to them to hit the receptive areas. And true to a Tom Fazio course, he gives you a ton of opportunities to score. So you're going back to talking about 18 to 20 under. I think you're probably in that window. I think the champion this week is definitely going to go low. The weather's going to cooperate. I think you're looking at high 70s, lower 80s. Not a shot of rain this week. Very humid, which lowers the ball's flight a little bit because of the humidity and being below sea level there. So it's going to play about a club longer than you normally would see on the PGA Tour based on where it's located. But I would be certain that you're going to see somebody go north of 18 under. A little known fact that if you ever see the movie Something to Talk About with Julia Roberts, the homestead that's on the property there was used in the filming of that movie. So there's a lot of cool little nuances to the history of down south in South Carolina and Beaufort County and Hilton Head and that whole little corridor that they call Low Country. So, it's going to be an event that supports the local Boys and Girls Clubs of Hardyville, South Carolina, youth golf instruction, and the Low Country Food Bank. So they have a lot of charity that's involved in this event as well. They're playing for $7.3 million. The golf course is a par 71, which is another reason why you'll see the scores being a little bit lower. And the length of the golf course is about 7,700 yards. So it is very healthy from tee to green.
All right, we've kept everyone waiting long enough. It's time for this week's Power 5 Sleepers and who you think will take away the trophy this week in the PGA Tour.
Power 5 and sleepers this week. You're going to see two big names. They're going to come in at the sleepers and a lot of names that we're kind of familiar with but haven't won very much on the PGA Tour. Starting off at sleeper number 1 position is Brandt Snedeker. Obviously, a two-time Heritage RBC champion at Hilton Head. He's certainly been under the radar all year. He's starting to play well the last couple months. I wouldn't be surprised to see his name sneak up to the leaderboard. Another big name, Brooks Koepka, probably one of the bigger names in the mix this week. Prepping for the U.S. Open, still stinging from his loss against Phil at Kiowa Island just down the road. He's playing with a little anger. Him and Bryson have been feuding, and I think he's put in enough time to play in practice where he's going to, really start concentrating on golf and get his game together. I don't know that he'll win this week, but I think he's putting himself in good position as he's heading into the U.S. Open at Torrey Pines. So I have him at sleeper this week. Coming in at number 5, a former NCAA champion that forfeited his opportunity to play in the 2018 U.S. Open and British Open when he was an amateur turning professional, Doc Redman. He had a lot of close calls, plays well on venues that a lot of tour players will skip, albeit the event in Detroit a couple years ago with the Rocket Mortgage. He kind of led all 3 rounds and just didn't get it done in the final round. He plays well on under-the-radar events, so I think Doc Redman's going to have a good week. And then rounding out our top 5 this week, 4 of the last 5 are going to be non-American players. So I'm going with a lot of Englishmen this week. I think the Americans certainly have their guard down with the U.S. Open on the horizon, so I think you're going to see a lot of European Tour players and players that you see at WGC events tend to do well this week. Ian Poulter is going to be in that 4th spot. His last win hasn't been until 2012. So it's been a while since he's played well, but he's had some close calls the past few weeks on the PGA Tour. Just hasn't put it together for more than 3 rounds. He's been 2 or 3 rounds pretty steady all year, making a lot of cuts. Just hasn't gotten it done on Sunday. I think playing on Bermuda greens, it's a big advantage for him. He plays in that area of Florida. He knows Southern golf very well. Knows what to do when you're below sea level and hit those extra clubs. So I think Ian Poulter is going to be a solid at number 4. Coming in at number 3 with 8 wins in the professional marks, Tommy Fleetwood is our number 3 this week. Always a guy that you see on the leaderboard, a guy that probably should have won a heck of a lot more times. This tournament, this golf course reminds me of Shinnecock when they used to have the U.S. Open and a couple PGA Championships and some events up there during the FedEx Cup playoffs. He was one of those guys that shot 63 at Shinnecock during a U.S. Open, and that place is darn near impossible. So I think he's going to have a lot of holes that are similar in feel to that when he goes to Congaree this week. So I have him as our number 3 spot. Number 2, another Englishman, the 2020 Arnold Palmer Invitational champ, Tyrrell Hatton. Plays well on Bermuda greens. He has a lot of wins overseas with Bermuda greens and internationally. I think he's about ready to jump in the winner's circle again, albeit for 2021, and I think he's a formidable candidate. So he's our number 2 this week. And then number 1, fellow Englishman, Matthew Fitzpatrick. 6 professional wins, a U.S. Amateur Championship. He's averaged a win per year on the PGA or European Tour. He's very accurate off the tee. He has enough length. And more importantly, hits an abundance of fairways and greens. So he's going to give himself an opportunity. He's been hanging around in some majors, and I think you're going to see him play well this week and next week as he goes into Torrey Pines. So Matthew Fitzpatrick, the Englishman, is our number 1 spot, rounding out the top 5 this week.
And I'm going to go with your number 2. I have him written down already, so I'm not cherry picking your Power 5. I promise. Tyrrell Hatton is my pick this week to win, and for all the same reasons that you put him at number 2. I mean, I think he's poised for a very competitive weekend at least, and hopefully for my confidence he wins.
Okay.
That's where I think the Arnold Palmer Invitational really elevated his game. It showed him that he could win a major and invitational event with a very elite field on a big stage. I think that's a jumping point for him on really taking his game to the next level, to just give himself the can-do attitude of I can win at this high level and on these big stages.
All right, Brian, I'm going outside the box. I've got Lucas Glover winning this event. And he's like 42 or 43 to 1 last I checked. But I have Lucas Glover winning this event because he's from around those parts. He knows the area quite well. Am I way off on this?
If I'm not mistaken, I think he may be a member there. So he's definitely knows the area, and I'm sure he's got a number of reps under his belt there compared to 98% of the field that's playing this week. And, going to your point, having some familiarity with the golf course is a huge advantage this week because it's not a tour stop that they've gone to in the past. It's not a tour stop that they're probably going to go to in the future as it's just a filler for the RBC. So I wouldn't be surprised if you had a guy like that win based on his local knowledge of the golf course or a no-name win this week. And that's why our Power 5 wasn't really your household names of guys that have won multiple times, because I think one of these younger guys like an Austin Cook or a Ben Martin, somewhere into that caliber can jump through and get their first win on the PGA Tour.
Okay, before we let you go, and before we even have you do the tip of the week, we have to bring up what happened last week at the Memorial. Jon Rahm has a 6-shot lead after the third round, and the bigwigs down there didn't even bother to tell him in private. They told him in public, hey, you tested positive for COVID. You got to get out of here. I thought it was a really bizarre look. It was not a great look for the PGA. I think members of the media, if you put truth serum in them, probably loved it because you got the very emotional, raw reaction from Jon Rahm. But take us through what happened and if they could have handled it any better.
You know what? It's a tricky slope because it's always going to be a double-edged sword. You're number one. You're looking out for the well-being of everybody else in the field, all the spectators that are down there, the volunteers, the whole 9 yards. So I mean, I understand that end of it. You know, having it done the way that it was handled, it could go either way. I mean, you have to do what you have to do to protect everybody. You have those tests being done for a reason, and you know, I'm not sure where he could have gone. You know, do they want him to enter the clubhouse? Do they want him to enter the locker room? And you know how you can pick up this disease. So I mean, it's kind of like, you know, what do you do? You're kind of darned if you do, darned if you don't. And you know, obviously him not to be able to finish. I mean, he could have shot 74, 75, and I think still win the golf tournament based on how it played out. You feel bad for him, but on the same token, I believe it's the second time he's had this. So which is kind of crazy. And I guess from, you know, talking to him afterwards, I guess somebody around him near his inner circle had caught it and obviously passed it along to him. So, you know, obviously he needs to get better, and you're definitely on the clock from that event to the U.S. Open. I mean, it's going to be borderline if he's going to be able to play in that. And I'm sure he wants to play in that. I'm sure he would have wanted to have won the Memorial, and he certainly was playing well enough to win that. I thought his statement that he sent out on either his website or Twitter or Facebook, I thought he handled it better than anybody. Hey, there's going to be more opportunities, and it's just a, you know, kind of a bump in the road type of thing, and understandably so. But yeah, I don't know. You're in a catch-22. It would have been nice to have the cameras not there, to not make it so public and, you know, kind of in your face type of a deal. But I don't know that they really had the luxury of being able to do anything differently. And obviously, when it comes to medical stuff, I mean, to have the privacy, you know, of that be front and center, I think is important as well. You know, it's between the player and his family, and you know how he has to proceed. You know, symptom-wise, it looked like he didn't have any symptoms at all. I mean, he was playing like he had no symptoms of anything, but just being a symptom of having a good golf swing for that week. So you certainly feel bad for him there, but you know, I don't know. You know, could they have done it differently? Maybe, but he still, you know, you're trying to block him from the scoring tent. You're trying to block him from the clubhouse. You're trying to block him from the locker room, and you know, possibly affecting others in there. So I mean, I don't know which way you go or where you go. I mean, you know, obviously, if this was his second time, you would think after the first time he'd get a shot, or I don't know, maybe he did, because there's some folks that have gotten shots that have gotten it. So I don't know who's to say or to speculate, but you know, it's just it's a bad scenario, and if I'm him, I'm thinking that I won that event, and unfortunately, you know, just couldn't get through with, you know, the way the stipulations and all that stuff are. But you want to protect the field, you want to protect the players, the volunteers, and everybody else that's there, because they're the ones that make the tournament function, and you don't want to affect anybody else. So that's important too. And then, you know, for him, it's going to be, you know, hopefully he's better enough for come around U.S. Open time, which he's got some time, but that's what they say, around 2 weeks is the number. So he's going to be cutting it pretty close.
And what is a golf guru without some quality advice? Brian, we're going to give you your opportunity, like every week, to share your wisdom with this week's tip of the week.
Well, I think this tip of the week really relates to, you know, some of the rough that the players have experienced at the PGA Championship, and some of the rough that folks up here in the Northeast are experiencing when the conditions are humid, damp. You're getting some rain. You know, the rough is very thick. It's very deep. We cut it twice a week here, and after you cut it the first time and you get some rain and you get some, you know, thunder and the lightning, the whole 9 yards, it gets wet, it just gets thick and gnarly. So it looks like you haven't cut it, but I reassure you, our guys here, you know, continue to cut. But you'll see this here. You'll see it at any of the area clubs. You'll see it at any of the golf courses that you're playing. The rough is just very healthy till the summer gets here and burns some of the thickness out of it. So players will hit in the rough. They have trouble hitting out of the rough, and we're going to give them some tips on, you know, basically hitting out of the rough, giving yourself some opportunity to be able to score when you put yourself maybe offline off the tee or missed the green, you know, just short of the green. So the first thing that we want you to think about as a player, number one, you want to take a good look at the lie. All basically sides of the golf ball, the front, the back, the sides. Where's the grass laying? how much grass is going to get caught between the club face and the golf ball. Really try to judge the type of shot you think you know how the golf ball is going to come out. So that's going to be the first thing. If it's a lie that's got a lot of grass over top of the ball and it's going to come out muffled, feeling like a marshmallow, it's better off choosing a club that has a lot of loft to just advance it, or get it somewhere where you can get yourself in position to be able to get it up and down. Don't try to be the hero in a lot of these cases. We watch it on the PGA Tour, every given weekend, Saturday and Sunday. These tour players hitting great shots out of rough, and you see the big chunk of grass coming flying up, or the fescue that they hit it in. To be able to do that, they have raw power. Those guys hit 500 shots a day. So it's basically trying to stay within your means. Trying to be conservative and play it safe to an extent. And if the lie's poor, you want to grab something and take your punishment, take your medicine, and kind of move on, live to see the next shot. Otherwise, if you have a poor lie and you're pulling out a hybrid or a fairway wood, you may advance it 10 or 15 yards. Not that you hit it bad, you hit it in the center of the club face. There was so much grass that knocked the golf ball back down as opposed to helping you lift it out. And, between that, trying to have enough power to cut through thick grass, a wood or a hybrid may not be the ideal scenario. So club selection is going to be the key. Judging how much grass you think is going to get caught between the club face and the ball is where you're at. If it's an iron, the grass will still have that grab, so you're going to use an extra club or two in loft. So if I have, say, 100 yards, and I would normally hit a gap wedge 100 yards, that's my go-to club. I will take something a little bit more in loft, but maybe it's a 56, knowing that when I hit that shot out, I'm going to use the bounce of the club, the sole of the club to get that grass to clear out, to get me through, knowing that the ball is going to come out very low, because that's the tendency of hitting a shot out of the rough. The ball will come out low, and it's going to come out with a lot of overspin on it or topspin. So when that ball hits, it's going to jettison forward. So it's not going to be like your gap wedge that you'd hit out of the fairway or sand wedge you'd hit out of the fairway that you can stop rather quickly or spin it back when you're on the fairway and you have a good lie and you're able to pinch the ball. So we want you to loosen up your grip a little bit. I think that's the biggest key. A little bit lighter grip pressure. That way that leading edge can kind of work underneath the golf ball a little bit better. Trust your swing. Make a good impact, pass through the golf ball. And I think that the next biggest key is, after you've made impact in connection with the golf ball, a nice high finish. The higher you finish, the higher ball flight that's going to come out of the rough. And I think that's hugely important as well. We want to have a lot of height. We want it to be able to hit and obviously run up, because it's going to have the tendency of coming out hot and have a lot of running and a lot of overspin to it. So I think if you do those things and try not to be the hero and play a little bit more conservative, give yourself an opportunity to have a chip on a nice, good, clean surface to get it up and down, as opposed to have to hit 2 or 3 more shots out of the rough. Same way as if you're 200 yards out. And, normally it'd be a 4-iron or 5-iron or 3-iron would be your club. Take a 7, take an 8, hack it out, get it to the short grass. Give yourself an opportunity to where it's not going to be so penalizing for you. But, judging the lie is the biggest key, and then hitting a shot that's going to give you the biggest impact of being able to get it up and down. Don't be hitting it out of the rough over a bunker or over water, because the ball is going to come out lower and it's going to come out running a little bit more. Take your medicine when you have to and play a little bit more conservative. But that's how you manage yourself out of a lot of heavy rough and lies that aren't very conducive if you hit it offline from a tee shot perspective.
Now, Brian, you talked a little bit about a high loft wedge. Explain what you mean by high loft wedge.
Anything that's got a lot of loft to it is going to help you get the golf ball into the air. So when you come through an impact, even though your pitching wedge would be, say, 50 degrees, 48 degrees, when you're making contact, that grass between the club face and the ball will have the tendency of shutting that face down a little bit, which is why the ball is going to come out so low. So at impact, we're probably going to be about 45, 44 degrees. So that's where the lowness comes out. But, if you were to take your 7-iron and hit through that grass, it's going to feel like you're hitting a 5-iron through grass like that. So, being able to increase the loft or taking a club higher in number, I think, is the biggest key. So if it's a pitching wedge, hit a gap wedge. If it's a gap wedge, hit a sand wedge. Playing to the point where you're using that loft to get yourself from tee to green in better position is going to be vital to you being able to eliminate hitting another shot from the rough or another 2 shots from the rough.
Excellent advice as always. And, we're 1 week closer to the U.S. Open. I noticed that Jason Kokrak is doing the 2 weeks off and get ready for the U.S. Open. If you were to give advice to Jason, is that something that you would have said, hey, do that? Because 2 weeks ago he won. He didn't go to the Memorial. He's not going to Congaree, and he's hanging out until the U.S. Open. Is that wise, or is that something that is well thought out plan wise?
You know what? I've seen his action the last couple months on the PGA Tour. And it kind of seems like he's playing 2 on, 2 off, 2 on, 2 off. So I think if he's sticking with his plan, I think it's good for him. Obviously we picked him a couple weeks ago and just thought that he was ready and just looked good. I could see the same thing going into Torrey Pines at the U.S. Open with how he's practicing, how he's preparing. Although I did read a article in Men's Health the last couple of days and got a chuckle out of it. It said, what are you doing, with your winnings or whatever, and what are you doing like during your off weeks? I guess he was helping a buddy mulch his yard. So I'm like, I almost started laughing when I heard that. But that's something he would do. I mean, it's definitely something he would do. And it's like, yeah, don't injure your back as you're going into the last half of the year, and you've got a shot at Ryder Cup and being in that top 20, which he's number 5 in the FedEx Cup points standing. So. You just look at that and laugh, and he's talking about bourbon in there. He's talking about helping his buddies during the off weeks, doing yard work and all this stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all human. We all do that. We all like to do that. It's nice to get on a mower, put your headphones on, and go out and mow your lawn. It's a decompression time. So, tour players are no different. They like to do and have a routine at home when they're there, and if he's part of it. Obviously, you can afford to have a lawn crew come in and do pretty much whatever he wants to his yard, or helping out a friend or whatever is pretty cool. But he seems to have a winning formula. 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and it's doing him well up to this point. And, hopefully he'll continue to do so as we hit the latter half of the FedEx Cup playoffs. And we've got the U.S. Open, our third of 4 majors, along with the British Open coming up in July. Before we really hit the FedEx Cup playoffs come September and October, and you're talking Ryder Cup and President's Cup and points and everything else. So he's certainly in good position. But you'd like to see him play a little bit more. But he has his formula where he's going to be at his best physically and mentally, and has his time to rest up and practice and work on mechanics when he's at home. So I'll kind of go with it from there and see where he's at.
Well, and Torrey Pines is the spot for the U.S. Open, and I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Torrey Pines is out in Southern California. Isn't that an area where Jason has performed quite well?
Jason's played well there. Obviously heading to the San Diego area. They've done some modifications to that golf course. It's a little bit different. That's the course that Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson grew up on as juniors and high school players, and got to play a lot of golf there. They've done some reconstruction. I think Reese Jones went in there, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, changed both the north and the south course. Very similar structure to here at the Metro Parks. They have a north and a south course where they have a PGA Tour event. They've lengthened the holes. They've repositioned some of the tee boxes for U.S. Opens and major championships, and it just plays a little bit differently than it was intended and designed. It's a municipal golf course owned by the city, which I think is pretty cool, albeit a little bit steeper in price. I think it's about $300 to play there, compared to our $36 if you're a resident of Mahoning County, and $28 as a senior. So it's a little bit higher from that end of it. But they have 2 championship PGA Tour style golf courses that are 7,500 yards now. But he's historically played well on the West Coast at Riviera, just closer to LA and in Hollywood. And I think that with his good play there, he's got some great mojo to call upon based on how he plays Bermuda and the Zoya rough that they're going to see out there when they do hit Torrey Pines. I just think he hits it extremely well, not only long off the tee, but he's always very accurate. Hits a lot of fairways. Continues to play well off the tee, puts himself in good position where he can attack a lot of long par fours, similar to what he did, picking up his win. They had a lot of 450, 480-yard, 500-yard par fours down at Colonial. And I think you're going to see a lot of that when it comes to U.S. Open time, and it's the person that can get it up and down and hit an abundance of greens. But if you want to hit a lot of greens, you have to hit a lot of fairways. And if you hit a lot of fairways, you're going to give yourself a lot more opportunities than half the players in that field. So, I think with his tee ball and his straightness off the tee, I think that's really going to lead him into a strong finish come Torrey Pines time.
Years ago, I had the now deceased Jerry McGee on my show on terrestrial radio, and I asked him, what's the ceiling with Jason? And he had said, long before Jason won his first event, if he is able to play to his potential, he could be a top 5 player on the PGA Tour. And isn't it interesting right now, if he's not a top 5 player, he's pretty damn close.
He's number 5 right now on FedEx Cup. There's no question about it. Jerry was spot on when he said that. He certainly has a ton of talent, and I'll give you this little tidbit. When I was at Avalon Lakes as the head professional there in the early 2000s, the back of the driving range was about 320, 340 yards. He's the reason there's nets at the back of the range, and he was in like 8th grade or a freshman in high school. So he was booming it then with equipment that's not as good as the equipment that they have now. So that just goes to show you how long Jason was, back in 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, and just how well he hit the ball. He's very accurate. And I can remember being on the back tees of number 6, which is the par 5, and watching him hit from where the tee box was and either flying them or bouncing them into the net. So he's extremely talented and was always very accurate off the tee. And I think that's a great formula. Anytime that you're playing at the professional level, especially on the PGA Tour, you have to be very accurate because you're going to give yourself a lot better opportunity for scoring to hit greens than hitting it out of the rough. Now, he certainly has the power to get out of it, but hitting from the fairways a lot easier and being able to spin the ball and get the ball to stop on the green, especially when it comes to major championships when the greens are firm and they're rolling at 13 or 14 on the stimp meter. So he certainly has a huge advantage, and he's riding a lot of momentum when he comes back here in another week.
You talk about the way he hit when he was in 8th grade, a freshman in high school. And then you talked earlier about how kids are getting recruited at 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. Is that kind of the age where you can start to see if a golfer has it or doesn't? Or are there some late bloomers that can have it at 18 or 19 and all of a sudden they click? Or is it usually just between the ages of 11 and 16 you can really tell this guy's got the stuff?
You can tell it between the age of 12 to about 15 or 16. However, a lot of stuff happens when you hit high school. Just the time and the effort and the practice that you put in has to still be there. And, obviously, girls are part of that, and doing clubs and organizations in high school and academics is part of that too. So those are all things that sort of slow your practice time down. So if you're organized and you manage your time wisely, Jason certainly did that because he was a really good student in school. And he tells you he wasn't, but he was a good student at school. Went to JFK, so there's a standard there. Went to Xavier, so it's not easy to get in those schools. But, you can tell the people that have it. Jason, you could tell you knew he was going to have something special. You didn't know what level it was based on what he was going to be able to put in time-wise. Gianna Clement is another one, a girl that's from Warren that's played well nationally. You could tell mechanic-wise she's there. Mentally she's there. She's got the time and the effort to put in. And then you got cases like, Ben Curtis. Ben Curtis I played with junior golf, here and there. He was a good junior player, not a great junior player. And then he was a good, collegiate athlete. Not a great collegiate athlete, but as soon as he graduated Kent State, just a light switch flipped and he got really good. Really good. Obviously to win, a handful of times on the PGA Tour, win the British Open, and to play as well as he, played throughout his career, and to be able to retire 3 or 4 years ago. He's got a kid playing in our U.S. Kids event. He's been up here, very accessible. He's going to do some things with Jenna Carsmere at the Eastwood Mall with the indoor golf place and put a golf academy and stuff up there. So he's a very nice person, but very different from where Jason was and where Gianna Clement was, and some of the other local kids, from our area that have been at that upper echelon level. But you can tell if they have it or if they don't. I mean, they certainly stand out. And if you look at the team that he played on at JFK, he got a lot of good players. They went to state, I think, every year that I was there. And I think they won it, or he won it, I think, 2 or 3 times as an individual. He had a lot of good players on his team, and then he was head and shoulders above those players. So, I mean, you got a lot of good players that can play Division I golf and went and played Division I golf off of that high school team. But you could just tell his bar was a little bit higher, and he was just a little bit better. Made more putts, chipped a little bit better than everybody else, hit more greens, hit more fairways. And I think that, if you have that and you have that ability to basically give up a lot and sacrifice a lot, I think it means a lot. I mean, playing golf, very good. You have to hit a lot of balls. You're on your own a lot. You're sacrificing your friends. You're sacrificing going to the festival, going to this party or this guy's house or vacation or family reunion. All of the little stuff you're sacrificing to get better at your sport, to get better at doing what you're doing. And Jason did that. I mean, he was there every single day on the putting green, chipping and putting, playing golf, not only at Avalon Lakes, because they remember at Trumbull. So he played there quite a bit and playing the courses that they would have played in high school, getting practice rounds and reps and getting yardages and stuff down. There's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot of sacrifice. I mean, it's, you're not dating very many people because you're busy doing what you're doing and you don't have time to put in. But it's, it comes down to, at the end of the day, what do you want to do? And this is the path that you have to go to get to that level. Kelly Capps, another one, played on the LPGA Tour. She went to Boardman, was I think Division II national champion at Methodist, 1 or 2 years. She's in their Hall of Fame. She's in Boardman's Hall of Fame. Same thing. She played around when I was playing as a junior, and she would come out and practice at Hubbard and take lessons off a guy by the name of Dave Collard, who I took lessons off of. And you could just tell, she had it, but she was there practicing all day from 7, 8 o'clock in the morning and would leave at 5, 6 o'clock in the evening. And it was every single day that she was home on break from Methodist or every single day from high school. She would drive out there, Dave would work with her, and she would play golf. But it's that commitment. I mean, it takes a lot of commitment, a lot of dedication. And, few people want to put the time and the effort in. And, to be at that level, you have to. And it's probably the same with every single sport across the board. And you have to put the time and the effort. You have to shoot the foul shots to be a good basketball player. You got to practice fielding to be a good baseball player and practice batting, every minute of the day, to get good and get better and to be able to react to what you're being thrown into. So golf's no different. I will say, going back to the left-handed thing from earlier, I think the only thing that left-handers have a huge advantage is in bowling. They got the left side. Not too many people use the Royal, but coming full circle on today's show, the lefties were definitely shut out from a golfer's perspective back when I was younger. But it's definitely flipped the switch, and it's nice to bring them back in. But being committed to the game of golf, I think is right-handed, left-handed, or so on down the line.
And Brian, there's another name that I wanted to throw out there. He won the Ohio High School State Championship in Division IV, if I'm not mistaken. Jared Wilson from Columbiana, 2-time Ohio High School State champion. He is now a junior playing golf at Kent State. I think he was supposed to go to the Carolinas.
Wake Forest.
He was in the ACC in the Carolinas at Wake Forest, transferred to Kent State. He tried to get on the U.S. Open, tried to get a spot at the Springfield Country Club in Ohio. Unfortunately, he fell a few shots short, but there's another kid that's I think everyone probably needs to keep their eye on.
He has it. I've seen him take lessons off of Andy Santor when he was here. He definitely has the ability, and he's good. Southpaw, just a good player. And you could tell, another guy that puts the time and the effort in and is at that level. So it takes time, effort, dedication, and a lot of sacrifice. Not with your family, you're not with your girlfriend, you're not doing too many things with your friends. So if you put the time and effort in, you're going to be very good at what you're doing. Like
you said, it's with every sport. I mean, you ask any Division I athlete, They probably didn't have your quote unquote normal high school experience because they were out on the field.
Nope.
They were out in the court. They were, putting in the work. So you gotta look at yourself and say, what do you want to sacrifice and how good do you want to be?
100%.
Brian, always a pleasure. Look forward to catching up with you next week. We will talk about the U.S. Open, and we will talk about how a normal Joe can qualify for the U.S. Open, because it's the only major in which normal Joes like myself, if I were any good at golf, could qualify and actually be rubbing elbows with the best of the best of the best. It is possible. You just have to have one hell of a good game in order to qualify. The movie that Kevin Costner was in, Tin Cup, that's a great example. I think they Hollywoodized a little bit, but it's a great example of how a normal Joe can qualify for the U.S. Open, and I think that's what makes the U.S. Open so special.
Nope, I agree with you 100%. One of the special events, obviously a major, and to be able to have that here in the United States is spectacular. And the history of the game, and Francis Ouimet being an amateur winning that, the greatest game, probably one of the best movies from a golf perspective. It shows you where golf started and where it came from and how it's changed and transitioned, and be able to get amateurs and normal people into an event where you're playing with the best in the world, the elite, is pretty neat.
We'll look forward to talking about that next week and get some more tips and handicap the U.S. Open field as well. Always a pleasure, sir.
You got it. One of my favorite events of the year.
All right. We'll look forward to speaking with you next week, Brian.
You got it. Have a good week, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
You as well. Brian Tolnar, our golfing guru over at Mill Creek. Man, what a great event they're going to have.
And a lot to digest over that segment with Brian Tolnar.
Yeah.
We talked about so much. We talked about what's going on this week at Mill Creek Park, how you can volunteer there. I feel like we talked to him for 3 hours, but we only talked to him for about an hour.
Yeah,
So,
about an hour.
A lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff going on over at Mill Creek, and still looking for volunteers for the
Junior Golf
Yep.
Association.
Yep.
Want to remind people that the raffle for the Father's Day golf package is available. The draw is Monday, so if you want to get that package, it's a $450 value, and all you have to do is donate a little bit of money to the Mill Creek Foundation. You can go on Brian Tolnar's Facebook. He shared, I think he was right, I think it's I Love Mill Creek Metro is the Facebook page, and you can get to their website and all the information on how to enter that raffle.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about, because my dad is, I've mentioned this, my dad got a knee replacement for the sole purpose that he wanted to continue golfing. This guy is crazy for golf. He's out on the golf course 2, 3, 4 times a week. He's well into his 80s, and he just absolutely loves to play the game of golf, and that would be an unbelievably great gift for any father or anyone who's in your life that happens to love the game of golf. It's a great Father's Day gift. So certainly take advantage of that, because you're going to get some good stuff over at Mill Creek.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they get some good stuff over there. So 330-886-0813, the MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning hotline open for business. As he was going through his sleepers and whatnot, I had made my picks, and I was like, okay, so do I have to change this? Do I have to keep this? I kept all of this.
Yours came out of the left field with
Listen.
I had Lucas Glover.
Lucas Glover. He is a member of that place.
Donald's long lost son. Donald.
Yeah. He's going to be Lethal Weapon 4 when it's all said and done. He's going to sit back and go, I'm going to hoist the whatever the hell you get at Congaree.
Danny Glover, sorry.
Yeah.
He's going to find angels in the 18th hole.
Yeah, pretty much. He's going to find an angel in the 18th hole, right in the cup, where the ball goes flying in from 200 yards, right in the cup.
There's an angel in my Coke. You said on Al. Who's Al?
Oh, Lord.
Oh, jeez.
Palmetto Championship at Congaree That is out in South Carolina, and it should be an awesome tournament. And like I said, I'm going with a guy that knows the course better than anyone on that tour this weekend. Now, having said that, now that I've picked him, he's probably not even going to make the cut because that's how I roll.